Hello, dear one. I am delighted that you are here with me in this beautiful moment of now. Very, very excited about this transit. It is very unique, and the absolute power of what is coming to us right now via the stars is so much surfacing and alchemizing and leveraging really the lead, the weight, and turning it into pure gold. So it's a lot of work and it's a lot of getting real. But this one is very special. So I'm delighted to be here with you. We are talking about the Sun and Vulcan, both conjunct at different points, and I'll talk about it here in a moment, with Rigel, the star, the beautiful star of integration in Orion. We've got this really interesting, and I'll kind of share it here. This is mirroring on both sides, tropical and sidereal, but obviously we're just talking about a little bit different degrees, just a shift, and then different signs. But the geometry is essentially the same. So the Sun was conjunct Rigel on the 7th. Then we have Vulcan, which is retrograde, and it's conjunct Rigel on June 9th. But then for a 5-day pattern, Vulcan and Rigel are conjunct doing this dance because Vulcan is going retrograde and then basically goes direct. And so we've got this 5-day overlap specifically with Vulcan and Rigel. So there is a very special thing happening with these energetics, and I would love to share more about them with you. And as always, we're going to move through our 3 tiers. We have tier 1, which is the matrix, unawakened ego, unawakened humanity. We've got tier 2, which is the path of the disciple. So those that are on their hero's journey, reversing their wheel, slaying their monsters in their lovely matrix mansion. And then we've got tier 3, which is the initiates. And they are ones who are still keeping tabs on what's happening here in tier 1, tier 2 in the matrix, because we are here, still here on the earth, participating in the matrix game, but have basically ascended. And by stepping into the center of the wheel, everything is spinning basically around the initiate. But the initiate is also connected with the sidereal stars. So indeed, in fact, we have 2 charts. Our first chart is our tropical chart. That is, as I affectionately joke, our meat suit, but our personality, our avatar for this incarnation, our face to the world. And then we have our sidereal natal chart, which is essentially our soul's essence, the absolute deepest connection with our oversoul, our monad in the 8th dimension, and receiving those things directly. So we're going to walk through this forecast with these 3 tiers. I will put all of the links of fun things if you want to jump in and dive into more in the show notes. What I'd like to invite you to do, because this is very complex and there are a lot of pieces and parts, and I will be very honest, sometimes even for myself, I'm like, ah! But follow your heart. Listen to what I'm sharing. Listen to the storytelling. Listen to the parts and players, and decide for yourself what resonates. Because if this resonates, this is showing a direct ascension spiral from the matrix into your hero's journey into the sidereal stars. And what we do in the sidereal stars, we do 2 things. First is receiving, understanding, observing what's happening in the tropical forecast, essentially for tier 1, tier 2. And we are selecting, identifying, understanding what needs to be upgraded in the matrix code. Because the matrix is our earth as a video game. It is our simulation that allows us to ascend and break out of the matrix. And that's through the tropical transits. But then second part is we're also looking at the sidereal transits, the sidereal stars. And that is the information that is coming directly into, imagine, your soul essence. So I'll say it like this. You don't have to sit down and like ready to receive or give me all the instructions now. You are often receiving this subconsciously in your dreams, through your meditative states, empowering yourself in that calm, anchored, centered state allows for the full receptivity, let's say, of the messages and the energies that are coming from the sidereal stars. So with that little intro, let's dive into this beautiful group of transits and what this means. So let's dive into understanding the transit energies. First, we have Rigel. Rigel is part of Orion. It is known as one of the fixed stars. It is incredibly far away. So this whole little dance that Vulcan is doing is very special to see that there's basically over 5 calendar days that we are going to experience this little duo dance, and really on the part of Vulcan, because Rigel only moves 1 degree every 72 years. So it's very, very minute, very small. Rigel in this way becomes almost this high voltage cosmic anvil where things are being worked through. What's really interesting is that normally Vulcan would speed right past Rigel, very similar to what the sun would do in roughly a single day as the sun starts this whole little dance. But instead, it's basically parking itself on top of Rigel for a good little 5-day sequence. What this does, imagine it's kind of like putting lenses together. It's like super powering, like focusing, getting such a specific, intense frequency from this dance. It's concentrating all of it into one point. Rigel is said to be the foot of the Pharaoh, but indicates and channels, kind of embodies that energy of someone who is self-reliant, someone who is successful, someone who is independent. So we're talking about sweeping success, benevolence, honor, glory, immense inventive or really like mechanical abilities. So because it wields this combo of basically Jupiter and Mars, it's like the expansive power of Jupiter, the aggressive initiating fire of Mars. What happens is that this can awaken different things, illuminate different things. So the sun is coming through and basically flashing and illuminating these energies, which then, I guess if we transition here into tier 1 with the unawakened ego or the matrix, it kind of creates this trap, if you will, an easy fall into vanity, bravado, tyrannical ambition. So it's kind of like the shadow, if you will, the lower octave of this foot of the Pharaoh energy. It's like getting the ego all fired up to basically conquer things without the embodied wisdom. This is signaling a mass influx of ambition and rise in public status and aggressive like desire to build an empire, to be the Pharaoh, right? And so given that this is the second decan, this is also where the unawakened ego is going to try to justify these things. Well, I must be strong and, striking if I'm going to be a good leader. No, those things aren't necessarily correlated. And so what this turns into with the illumination of the sun initially, building superficial alliances, through gossip, telling people what they want to hear and using logic to justify the us versus them, because we're seeing this also through the lens of Gemini. It's the dualistic mindset. So Rigel with this energy, it's like feeding the unawakened ego with the frantic need for worship. Say it like that. So when they're manipulating with gossip and words and rigid logic and seeing that this doesn't control any chaos, it actually creates more. They then experience paralyzing anxiety, attempting at this imitation of a shamanic egoic death. It's like the door flies open. The opportunity is there. And instead it creates this hostility and protection. Again, decan 2 of like, no, I have to justify what's happening. I must stand here. I will not wield. So what this sounds like, look at me. I'm not recognized, validated, and actively applauded by the people who are around me in my life. And so therefore, I have no meaning and I'm completely invisible. So the 3D ego, through this sun flash that happened on the 7th, basically felt this intense, aggressive drive towards public success. And really, with Gemini, the mental dominance. However, this kind of quickly flashes also the depth of this dysfunction. And instead, the performative unawakened ego, instead of going into a surrendering state, again, that invitation for shamanic egoic death, goes into the us versus them dualistic manipulation to sustain any sort of spotlight that they're craving. Because they saw it, they felt it. Rigel flashed it. It's like, oh, I want that. So that was the intention first. In walking through with the sun specifically, tier 2, this is, again, stage 2 of the reversed wheel. This is that second decan. This is the aha moment. This is seeing that the crippling anxiety can actually transmute into profound mental clarity. We just must allow it. And then seeing that every paradox that had basically fried their brain in the matrix, trying to figure it out, trying to mentalize it, trying to make it logical and figure it out, is just a reflection of the often warlike feeling between the ego and the soul. So it's learning how to hold the complete dichotomy of these two energetic perspectives in the mind. So holding it there without any nervous system friction, fear, and understanding that this truth. So if we're looking at this, if you see my hands, we're talking about a circle, a sphere. It's not linear. It is a sphere, which means we can reach any point at any point. Literally. So the disciple is seeing the monster through the eyes of Gemini, seeing their lower mind spinning out of control, seeking credit, seeking applause. And Rigel is basically the invitation for us in that spotlight that kind of shot the light and showed everything. Are we going to use that massive energetic power to build a spiritual ego kingdom, or will you step outside of the matrix vanity altogether? So this is unplugging from that mental friction and burning away the need for validation. To me, that's the key thing. So believe it or not, the pure synthesis and the love wisdom Ray 2, these are the quote, quote, weapons to slay your monster. You're being handed this immense aggressive power and protection of Rigel, but you don't allow it to go to your head. So this is the silencing, the calming of the endless chatter, the endless analytical Gemini, bouncing back and forth between the two options, whatever they may be, and refusing the temptation to show off the spiritual connection, intellect to those around you. It's holding it within. It's embodying it. Because I imagine it like if you're saying it out loud, you're actually spilling it out, which is not necessarily, obviously everything can serve us always, but spilling it out instead of containing it within and actually embodying it so deeply that it actually starts radiating out from your heart. So it's literally dousing and shooting out from every piece of your aura and using the Venus energy to hold these quote, quote, contradictory truths, if you will, the dichotomy, in perfect harmony. And I use harmony, not balance, because harmony is some sort of flow. Balance might be more mathematically equal. We're just looking for some harmony. And that you are a sovereign creator who needs absolutely no matrix validation to shine. You don't. So tier 3, my initiates, for that sun, just spotlight, it's really holding the unity field within. It's understanding the great power that Rigel is handing to us. But it's, again, embodying that calm, that harmony, and anchoring in that love wisdom. And for you tier 3s, under the sidereal stars, the sun is in Taurus at 18 degrees. So now we're looking at it through the Taurus room lens. This is the illuminated bedrock, the foundation of the new earth, converting, if you will, pure spirit into physical matter. This is that pure, massive, high voltage fire basically sent through Rigel to forge the golden architecture. So this is the sun veiling the seventh ray. And given that it's just on the bleeding edge of Decan 2 and stepping into Decan 3, it's translating that monadic electricity that's also coming through into a workable 5D frequency and organizing these architectural codes within your casual body. So when it comes time to start laying that ground foundation, the human collective can absorb the upgrade without frying their nervous systems. So to me, then what happens is the magic with Vulcan. Vulcan is that first ray of will and power. It's the unyielding hammer that's basically forging the new earth gold. We'll just say like, right, transmuting that lead into gold. We're working on it. We're forging it into something higher, into light. And so this is amplified by the ambition, really, of Rigel. It's delivering a high voltage blow, if you will, to the lower mind, destroying the mental structures, destroying the gossip, destroying the communications that the ego built specifically to gain applause, to essentially forge the raw essence of the soul into perfect alignment. So Vulcan feeling in that tier 1, this is again the second decan, 17 degrees of Gemini. The ego is going to try to make itself comfortable with essentially the mental chaos. So using charm and intellect to play both sides and building those superficial alliances through gossip, through telling people what they want to hear and justifying that dual mindset. But this also plays into almost like trying to outsmart the universe. The ego is like, I know what I'm going to do, right? got it all figured out. But Vulcan's hammer basically comes in and completely shatters the manipulative mental structure. So that's the difference. The sun is shining. Vulcan's coming in with the hammer. The egoic lower mind then becomes completely overwhelmed by the mental static. And the person, again, this is the massive invitation, but also it's starting to happen. It's just if they allow it to happen, the devastating ego death, the paralyzing anxiety, the absolute burnout, because the audiences, the superficial alliances, they're all being removed. The hammer is coming in. So again, this room monster being Gemini, it's that endless, relentless chatter of the lower mind. It's the illusion of duality and basically using the mind to manipulate, to avoid the deeper truth. So what this will sound like specifically with Vulcan, my entire identity was built on being seen and heard. But now without my audience, essentially my external validation, my clever network of strategic people, I am completely invisible. But the burnout is destroying me. And mind you, this energy is going to last for 5 days. It's going retrograde and then it's stationing direct and then coming back and going direct. So it's like, I imagine like peanut butter, you're just laying it on. This is massive. This is going to feel like the brain is in a vice grip. And this means also, because it's that second decan, there's going to be a lot of protection, a lot of justification. So there's going to be some aggression and trying as hard as they can to use their intellect to gain status, to gain control, and really control the narrative because it's Rigel, the story. But what happens is that Vulcan comes in and basically systematically smashes any communication, any stories, any alliances that lack spiritual integrity. So the 3D collective, the matrix, the unawakened ego is going to experience severe mental exhaustion and burnout because the performative masks are basically now being forged and burned in the furnace. So it's not enough to shine the light on where they are. And that was the invitation. That was the invitation with the sun. But Vulcan is coming in and is like, nope, if it still wants to exist, it is now going to not exist. By my hammer. As we look to tier 2, the disciple, we're looking at the esoteric ruler of Venus instead of the orthodox ruler of Mercury. So this again, at that decan 2 is the aha moment. This is that dichotomy, if you will, of the ego and the soul, that, war, if you will, between them, but it really being that sphere and having access to anything at any moment. So the disciple is going to be doing work in that hero's journey, slaying your monster, in catching when the lower mind begins to basically spin or try to sneak back into that really performative spirituality. That's all that keeps coming to my mind. And seeking the credit for their sharp intellect, which Rigel is basically shocking into, like injecting into. It's like, oh, I'll grab that. Yeah, grab that. So this transit really brings a very uncomfy situation for, 5 days, y'all. And we're in the thick of it right now, where the realization, the understanding of being passed over for recognition. And this is about consciously stepping into Vulcan's fire to burn away the need for applause and to leverage Venus to really unify the warring mind that tries to go to the dichotomy of things, the illusion of separation. So the weapon is pure synthesis and love wisdom. Rigel is basically handing you massive cosmic power, and Vulcan is demanding that you leave your ego at the door. So the heavy lifting across these 5 days, most specifically, is noticing where you're still performing for validation, and specifically performing your spirituality for validation. You must drop the monkey mind, wield Venus as your weapon of literally pure synthesis, and doing the heavy work, the unglamorous work, basically, of building your rainbow bridge, purely for the joy of it. And for my tier 3s, for Vulcan, it's remaining that silent anchor. And this is the beautiful thing. There may be still just little dust bunnies, right? Little urges, little 5-second urge of, proving or taking credit for your light. But it's instead feeling those divine sparks from the divine blacksmith, Vulcan, ensuring that bridge, that rainbow bridge that you already built, remains perfectly synthesized and is ready to hold space for humanity's mental upgrade. And the last piece, tier 3, initiates, When we look through the sidereal stars, we're looking at Taurus. Vulcan's in Taurus at 18 degrees. So again, we're on that edge, tier 2, tier 3. Because it's in Taurus, this is the illumination of the bedrock. Again, the friction, but the like sheer power, pure spirit, pulling that through into physical matter. This is where you wield the hammer of the gods that Vulcan so beautifully holds. And with the sheer voltage of Rigel, it's commanding that you are the ultimate grounding rod. You are pulling down those 8D light codes and concepts and hammering them into the 3D reality, as well as that 5D architecture for the new earth. So specifically when we're looking at our monad, what our 8D architecture is coming through is the Taurus Stargate, supercharged by Rigel, and it's literally the world building power of Vulcan. So this is pulling through the 5D blueprint for the new earth. This is translating that raw first ray energy of will and power and the exact structural geometry, if you will, really required to spiritualize physical matter. So it's the physical earth grid. It's like the infrastructure. So to recap, we have this 5-day event of Vulcan retrograde, stationing direct, going direct, like hanging out, like forging. This is truly an era defining moment. So the massive mental burnout, the anxiety, the exhaustion, this is why. Because Vulcan's hammer is systematically shattering the performative masks that we wear, just annihilating them and throwing it all in the furnace, leveraging that to forge the new foundation. So this is understanding, surrendering. This is allowing the destruction to go into that shamanic ego death. And then it's tier 2, leveraging that to break down the things that are no longer needed. It's that energy that finally you allow to leave to then come back and return to you in a form that serves you, which tier 3, you are pulling all of this through the needle, if you will, and forging the new earth and reshoring up the needs, the code of the matrix to better support people to be able to leverage that vehicle to ascend. But building the new earth and surrendering to the anvil, I'll say it like that, which is true alchemy. You are being forged into gold. So to me, this group, right, groupings of transits is so powerful. This is an opportunity for us to ascend, to destroy what no longer serves, but break down that crystallized energy so that it can come back to us in gold. So if any of this served you, I would love to know. I also will include links in the show notes for more information about esoteric astrology. And I would love to invite you to my next lovely feature of these wild transit energies. For me, I'm stepping outside of some of the more traditional because the stars are our connection to everything. They are the channels of information. And honestly, even when we're in the tier 1, stepping into the tier 2, we really do. We need those energies to help kind of push us, a little kick in the pants, you know? Because if I'm honest, I feel like they keep us honest. Even if we slack a little bit or we slide a lot and we're not doing the work, these transits are there to remind us, to facilitate. And they're in such a symphony that if we just allow the dance with them, we would end up embodying the things that they're bringing us, the superpowers, really. I mean, Rigel, hello. Who would not want to embody everything that Rigel stands for? This is the opportunity to do so. Through the sun, illumination, and through Vulcan, absolutely getting in there with the hammer, bringing it all up, allowing what serves us, and setting free what doesn't. So until we meet again, my beautiful friend, namaste.